Hunter Biden is the most protected person in the country.
This barely functional human who's got this roaring crack addiction and roaring sex addiction.
Leaving meetings every 10, 15 minutes, smoking crack, snorting coke or something, in the middle of negotiating some of these deals.
Tens of millions of dollars. It came from the Ukraine, it came from China, it came from Russian entities.
And walked in a customer clutching 3 MacBook Pros. When I asked for his last name, there was a long pause and he kind of sarcastically added Biden.
There is a massive amount of material here that's very damaging to Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Jim Biden.
It shows corruption at the highest level of the American government.
Breaking tonight, the third story in a row, there are new developments in the Hunter Biden email story.
When I got on the plane, I was running. I was afraid and I was scared and I left.
I probably said too much. The NSA will be on my ass.
Hunter Biden, the son of President Joe Biden, is both an enigma and an open book. He's published a revealing memoir. His shadowy dealings have been investigated by congressional committees. He abandoned his laptop with thousands of photos, videos, emails, and text messages that fill in the rest of his life of drug use, sexual depravity, and high-level wheeling and dealing, facilitated, as Hunter Biden readily admits, by the Biden name.
I think you have to begin the Hunter Biden story with the tragic passing of his mother in an automobile accident.
Hunter Biden has said his first memory is lying in a hospital next to his brother Beau after that December 1972 accident in which his sister also died. He was 2 years old.
The both of them were in the hospital, holding each other's hands, saying, I love you, I love you, I love you.
Joe, only 30 at the time, had been elected senator weeks earlier and weighed giving up the position to stay home with his boys. He decided instead to take his seat and was sworn in from his children's bedside.
He made the choice that he would go to Washington and take up this very big career in the Senate. It was a prize that he would not give up.
Joe Biden made the 3-hour round-trip commute between Delaware and D.C. His sister and mother took care of the boys during those long days.
He has said that people encouraged him and persuaded him that it was the best thing to do for his children. But if you listen to Hunter, he certainly, I think, missed the fact that he'd lost his mother and pretty much lost his father.
In his memoir, Hunter traces his woes back to the accident.
I don't see that tragic moment as necessarily resulting in behaviors that lent themselves to addiction. That would be a cop-out. But I do have a better understanding of why I feel the way I do sometimes. It was a lonely place to be as a child, and it's a lonely place to be now.
When Hunter was 7 years old, Joe married English teacher Jill Jacobs. They had a daughter, Ashley. Hunter describes an idyllic childhood, palling around with his older brother and best friend Beau. But texts and emails on his laptop suggest a more complicated relationship. Hunter describes himself as
the loser brother, always following along behind a superstar brother, picking up the crumbs he left on the floor. All of my friends have always thought of me as a joke, and the clown that Beau took care of.
And Hunter underscored a crucial trait that separated him from Beau.
The biggest difference between us, I drank and Beau didn't. The first drink I ever took knowing what I was doing, or more accurately, knowing what I shouldn't be doing, was in the summer between 8th and 9th grades. The troubling thing, looking back, getting blasted and sick as a dog didn't scare me or turn me off one bit. Instead, I thought it was kind of cool.
Meantime, his father won re-election in 1978 and 1984 with a lot of help from his family.
Joe Biden, in all his political campaigns, always emphasizes the fact that it's a family affair, that, his sister is his campaign manager, that his brother is involved in fundraising. And that sounds like a great story, but the flip side of it is individuals are getting paid. Valerie Biden, his sister, who's run his campaign, has taken in millions of dollars in fees serving as his campaign manager. And let's just be clear, Joe Biden's re-election in Delaware is never really in doubt. So the simple fact is the Biden family became enriched through this arrangement that Joe Biden set up, spending campaign dollars and giving it to members of his own family.
As today, I announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
The 1988 presidential election approached, and Joe, now 45 years old, was ready to reach for the brass ring.
I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship.
It did not go well.
I won the International Moot Court competition. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees.
He got caught lying about his academic achievements.
And I'd be delighted to sit down and compare my IQ to yours if you'd like, Frank.
He also got busted for plagiarizing a speech from UK politician Neil Kinnock.
My ancestors who worked in the coal mines in northeast Pennsylvania don't come up after 12 hours and play football for 4 hours.
Was it because they were weak? Those people who could work 8 hours underground and then come up and play football.
He had to apologize as well for stealing a speech from Robert Kennedy, word for word.
It doesn't measure the beauty of our poetry, the strength of our marriages, the intelligence of our public debate, the integrity of our public official.
Now to the tough part, my record in law school.
It was next revealed he almost got kicked out of law school.
I found that in his required legal methods, Mr. Biden used 5 pages of published law review article, of a published law review article without quotation or citation. That's precisely right.
Hunter says it was, quote, awful to watch his father become a national laughingstock.
There will be other opportunities for me to campaign for president.
After Joe dropped out, a devastated Hunter even tried to punch out hecklers at a football game who taunted his father. That kicked off a rough high school senior year for Hunter. He went from, quote, drinking in earnest to using coke to being arrested for the drug on the Jersey Shore after graduation.
He had a cocaine bust when he was still in high school at the age of 18. That record was expunged.
This scrape with the law didn't scare the senator's son straight. He continued to use cocaine through college at Georgetown University. Senior year, he met Bicycles, a homeless D.C. crack dealer.
It was at the height of the crack epidemic in the early 1990s, and with the fledgling addict's wrong-headed sense of misadventure, I decided to see what all the hubbub was about. Bicycles then sold me what little crack she had on her and told me to get the hell out.
As you'll see, years later, when Joe Biden was vice president, Hunter sought out the still homeless Bicycles, and they moved in together. But back in 1992, after graduating from college, Hunter met Kathleen Buell at a Jesuit volunteer program. She got pregnant after 3 months of dating. They wed in '93 before Maisie, their first daughter, was born. Meanwhile, Hunter eyed law school.
Hunter Biden wanted to go to Yale.
But perhaps not as much as his father, the Senate Judiciary Chairman. Joe presided over the confirmation of judges who hailed largely from the Harvards, Yales, and Columbias. Author Ben Kramer reports Biden is saying there's a river of power that flows through this country, and it flows from the Ivy League. Yale rejected Hunter, so he went to Georgetown, but got into Yale the next year, thanks, he claims, to a most improbable credential, his brilliance as a poet.
I applied to Yale again and included with my application a poem I wrote, something everyone discouraged. Yale's acceptance letter noted that my success and dedication during my first year of law school at Georgetown more than qualified me, but that my poem was unlike anything they'd ever received and earned me my spot there.
We tried to confirm this story with Yale, but they were unable to answer. Miranda Devine thinks there's a much more obvious explanation.
Assisted by his father's contacts, obviously, as with everything else in his life, to get into Yale Law School, and he didn't have the marks for it.
After law school, Hunter went back to Wilmington and scored a $100,000 a year VP gig with a big Delaware bank. That was a lot of money back then, even for a Yale law grad.
He took a job with MBNA, which is a massive bank in Delaware. They hired Hunter as a finance executive. He didn't have background in finance.
But MBNA was one of the largest donors to his father's 1990 Senate run, in which Hunter served as deputy campaign manager.
Hunter Biden's life has really been laid out for him by his father, who assigned Hunter the role in the family of being the bag man, the money maker. He was given these jobs with enormous salaries well beyond his credentials.
You really can't find a case of any business venture Hunter Biden is involved in that does not revolve around his father's political power.
But you can find on Hunter's laptop evidence that through the years, Joe demanded a substantial cut of every gig his son got, and Hunter was at times resentful. For instance, this group text from 2019.
I hope you all can do what I did and pay for everything for this entire family for 30 years. It's really hard. But don't worry, unlike Pop, I won't make you give me half your salary.
And in a predominantly incoherent email to his aunt, Hunter complained he had to pay off his brother's student loans.
Dad never paid one dime.
In 1998, Hunter moved to the Commerce Department in Washington. Then 3 years later, started a D.C. lobbying firm where he pocketed hundreds of thousands in consulting fees from MBNA, while his father pushed legislation that would make it harder for consumers to file bankruptcy.
In retrospect, wasn't it inappropriate for someone like you, in the middle of all this, to have your son collecting money from this big credit card company while you were on the floor protecting your teachers?
Look, the fact of the matter is that I have had an entire career that no one has ever questioned whether or not anybody has influenced me.
He became a lobbyist in a special area, which was getting sort of budget line favors for specific entities in the state of Delaware, where his father was the senior senator. So again, why is Hunter Biden in that position? I would argue because his father was the one who was going to make the decisions on who is going to get those carve-outs in pieces of legislation.
One thing that's not up for debate. Hunter, by then a father of 3 daughters, was also an alcoholic, though a functioning one, he insists.
I was a functional alcoholic. I always could drink 5 times more than anyone else, but now I was staying overnight, not making it home in time to take the kids to school in the morning.
He moved his family from Delaware to Washington in 2003, but kept drinking until he landed in rehab.
I admitted myself into the Crossroads Center, a residential rehab program in Antigua, founded 5 years earlier by Eric Clapton. I stayed there for a month. It worked.
Meantime, Joe became chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and his family's business went international.
The Biden family ambitions go from Delaware and some of these other deals to this massive global enterprise that incorporates the far corners of the planet.
In 2006, while Hunter was still heading his lobbying firm, he also joined forces with Joe's brother Jim to purchase a New York hedge fund called Paradigm Global.
Why people believe that Hunter Biden, with no background in finance, and James Biden, with little background in finance, could run a hedge fund, who knows?
Whether K Street lobbyist or Wall Street money manager, the pitch was the same. They were selling Joe. Charles Provini, who James and Hunter recruited to serve as the fund's president, said both repeatedly cited Joe's political ties. Don't worry about investors. Jim Biden reportedly bragged to another executive. We've got people all around the world who want to invest in Joe Biden.
And that's, I think, a further indication that so much of the family's wealth is tied up with the political fortunes of Joe Biden.
For better or worse, it seems, Hunter and Jim's hedge fund turned out to be a flop. So did Joe Biden's next run for president in 2008, which infamously began with a cringe-inducing compliment to the new kid in the race, Senator Barack Obama.
I mean, you got the first sort of mainstream African American who was articulate and bright and clean and a nice-looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook.
Biden finished with less than 1% in the Iowa caucuses and dropped out. Obama, upon winning the nomination, tapped Joe as his running mate.
The next Vice President of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
The Obama administration was on board for Joe, with one exception.
When Joe Biden is chosen to be Barack Obama's running mate, the Obama team lets it be known that they do not think it's good that Hunter Biden is a lobbyist.
The biggest issue that they had with Joe was these sort of grace and favour jobs that Joe had organised for Hunter and Hunter's lobbying and how he was influence peddling in Washington. And they wanted to, go into office or win an election as a squeaky clean team. So Hunter was asked to step away from lobbying.
Hunter quickly found a new career path. And with his father officially vice president, he was seeing money like never before.
Hunter Biden gets together with a couple of old college friends, Devin Archer and Chris Hines, who happens to be the stepson of Senator John Kerry. And they decide they want to start a new financial firm that's going to specialize in private equity.
The three of them together started a company called Rosemont Seneca. The fact that they are the sons or stepsons of people in the administration, powerful Democrats in Washington, certainly was the basis of their business. The sorts of doors were open to him that Goldman Sachs would kill for.
Hunter and Hines exchanged emails in which they fancied themselves a real-life James Bond, Jason Bourne duo sitting down with foreign oligarchs. Robert Davi is the director of My Son Hunter.
Inordinate amount of deal-making that went on with a variety of nefarious people.
Every famous, infamous, international person who came to Washington, D.C. and met with his father, Hunter generally got an introduction.
Foreign oligarchs and foreign governments are currying favor and getting favors from the most powerful family in America, which is the Bidens.
In his memoir, Hunter Biden claims he stayed sober from his first rehab stint in 2003 until his father's second year as vice president in 2010. By that time, Hunter was trotting the globe and tempting fate.
You find yourself flying home from a business trip in Madrid on the red-eye, overworked, sleep-deprived, no exercise in 3 months. You're grateful when a flight attendant stops by your seat and asks, as she has asked everyone around you, if you'd like a drink. Without hesitation, without really even thinking, you answer, as I answered, I'll have a Bloody Mary. You're off to the races.
Hunter would be off to the races for most of his father's career. In our next episode, the Ukrainians are in, the Secret Service is out, and the son of the vice president descends into a debauched world of crack cocaine, parades of prostitutes, and stink-to-high-heaven financial deals with odious oligarchs. You're about to hear a story that would be hard to believe if it didn't come straight from Hunter Biden himself. Texts, emails, raunchy photos, and rambling voice memos. You can't sink this low and not have any repercussions without a lot of help. And Hunter Biden got plenty of it from people who had a lot to gain through knowing his father. If his relapse started with booze, it quickly escalated to include extended crack binges and sex marathons with multiple prostitutes, many of which he memorialized on pictures and videos on the laptop, which, as you'll see, a number of investigators have concluded is genuine. The Bidens haven't denied it is, and Hunter himself has conceded there is a possibility it could be his.
Honestly, babe, the problem is you have too many girls there. I understand you like a lot of girls, but that's fine to do one at a time. At the tops, too.
Hunter's debauchery would last years and be funded by foreign oligarchs who calculated the vice president's junkie son had plenty to offer them. But the cash pouring in wasn't enough to meet the needs of the rest of the Biden family, who sent Hunter invoices to pay big and small. For instance, an email titled JRB Bills detailed Hunter was paying hefty tabs to keep up his father's Delaware mansion. In one payment cycle, $1,239 to the builder, $1,475 to the painter, $2,600 to the contractor, and $475 for shutters. Fortunately for the Bidens, Hunter's raging drug and alcohol addiction didn't scare away powerful business suitors. Just the opposite, it seems.
They latch on very quickly to China. Everybody knows that to do business in China, it's based on political connections, not just connections in Beijing, but the connections you have in your own country. It's about having what they call guanxi, which is sort of, are you juiced in? And it's hard to find a small firm that is more juiced in than Rosemont Seneca Partners. In 2010 and 2011, Hunter Biden starts taking trips to Beijing, China.
After one trip, Hunter enthusiastically emailed his Chinese host.
You are the best. Just give me my marching orders.
They're not meeting with low-ranking people. They are meeting with the sort of top tier of Chinese finance. This is a small, sort of rinky-dink financial firm that's only been in business for 18 months, and yet these doors magically open.
The magic word was Biden, as Hunter confirmed in an email to his business partner, Devon Archer.
It has nothing to do with me, and everything to do with my last name.
In May 2013, Vice President Joe Biden pulled strings to get his 43-year-old addict son an unlikely commission in the Navy.
One of the most curious stories about Hunter Biden that we know of is that he actually tried to enter the Naval Reserves at a fairly old age. He got an exemption in order to be able to enter. He got another exemption because he had had a drug issue in his past. But connections help, and with Joe Biden, his father, being vice president, he's able to get in.
We have a lot of bad judgment in my family. My son, who's over 40, just joined the United States Navy, is about to be sworn in as an officer. Hunter Biden.
Like Hunter's Yale law degree, his military service was a credential his father was quick to boast about. Too quick, it turns out.
Hunter doesn't even make it through his first weekend in the Naval Reserve. He's caught in a drug test with cocaine in his blood. He makes up a cock and bull story about how he was outside a bar the night before and someone handed him a cigarette. It must have been laced with cocaine.
But a never-released statement drafted on his laptop presumably is closer to the truth.
After 10 years of sobriety, I relapsed at possibly the most inopportune time. The guilt and shame I have felt over letting my family down was indescribable. I sought an age waiver at 42 years old to serve in the U.S. Navy. I dishonored that great privilege, and for that, I am deeply ashamed. But I also know that I cannot allow one moment in time to define me.
Hunter's brother Bo, a vet who served in Afghanistan and then became Delaware's Attorney General, brought him home from the base. Bo was seen as a future Senate candidate. Joe believed he was presidential timber. But dreams of Biden political dynasty dashed 2 months later when Bo received a death sentence diagnosis: brain cancer. The Bidens prayed for a miracle, but also got back to business. In December 2013, Hunter flew to Beijing on Air Force Two after his father was picked to be President Obama's point man on China.
It's not just Joe Biden bringing his son along because he likes him and he wants to chat to him on the plane. This is American power come to do business. Hunter Biden is recognized as a princeling. And this is a unique creature in China. Instead of giving the money directly to the minister, to the person in charge, you give it to their son, their grandson, their wife, a relative. Hunter Biden was brought there openly as Joe Biden's representative.
We do know that during this visit that Hunter Biden introduced his father to one of his Chinese business partners. And then within 10 days of them returning to the United States on Air Force Two, one of the big deals for Hunter Biden gets closed. It's called Boei Harvest. It's $1.5 billion private equity deal.
Peter Schweitzer believes China got its quid pro quo when Joe Biden pushed questionable policies favored by Hunter's business partners.
In that December 2013 trip, they're pressing him to take a very hard line on the South China Sea, on trade issues, on human rights. He's decidedly not hardline. He's very soft. And I would argue that aligns very, very nicely with the fact that his son is trying to finalize this deal in Beijing with an entity that is connected to the Chinese government itself.
Around that time, Hunter forwarded Devon Archer a New York Times article titled, "Biden May Take on Expanded Role in Foreign Policy in Second Term," and added the comment,
"If we can't figure this out, we should be shot."
7 months later, in July 2014, Hunter returned to rehab, this time in Tijuana, Mexico, where he was treated with toad venom. He claims it kept him sober for a year. Around that time, he gave up Secret Service protection, though it is unclear how many of Hunter's foreign escapades Secret Service did attend, as the agency has redacted records about Hunter's travels to countries like Russia, China, and Kazakhstan. Regardless, the international man of mystery forged ahead and found another source for big bucks, thanks to a lucrative energy deal in Ukraine.
The spring of 2014, Hunter Biden strikes up this relationship with Burisma, which is this corrupt Ukrainian energy company that involves Ukrainian government officials and very corrupt oligarchs. They want a relationship in Washington, D.C., and they look to Hunter Biden.
It just so happens the vice president was also overseeing foreign policy in Ukraine.
Joe Biden is kind of the administration's point person. And then within a 1 month period of time, in 2014, Joe Biden meeting with Hunter's business partner, Devon Archer, in the White House, going to Ukraine. Within a week or so, all of a sudden, Devon's on the board, Hunter's on the board.
Chris Hines had no interest in being involved with Burisma, and I think it's evidence of the fact that the son of a powerful political figure, John Kerry, realized how far gone Hunter Biden was prepared to go, and it was too much even for Chris Hines.
We reached out to Chris Hines for a statement. He claims he left Rosemont Seneca after being alarmed by his colleagues' quote, lack of judgment. Emails from Hunter's other business associates suggest they were aware of the relationship's liability.
Stress reputational risk. Stress zero policy on using names that are not ours in direct reference. Explain less overt role you will play relative to me, front man, particularly in elections.
Burisma, even among a bunch of companies that have reputations for corruption, it really has a reputation for that. So getting these Rosemont Seneca guys on their board was a huge coup for them.
Burisma was quick to tout its new relationship.
Hey guys, there's apparently a photo of Devin and the VP on Burisma's website. Dimitra, VP counsel, called and asked that we tell Burisma they need to take it down. Legally, they aren't comfortable with the VP's picture being up on the site as what seems like an endorsement.
It was politically risky for the son of a vice president, but the money was good.
Joe Biden knows exactly what's going on. He wants plausible deniability, but he also knows this is a way for his family to become fabulously wealthy.
American studies have shown that you might expect to get about $55,000 to $60,000 a year if you are serving on a board of a company about Burisma's size. By contrast, the Burisma board pay was $80,000 a month.
To hear Hunter tell it, all that cash was less a blessing than a curse.
Burisma turned into a major enabler during my steepest skid into addiction. The board fee had morphed into a wicked sort of funny money. It hounded me to spend recklessly, dangerously, destructively, humiliatingly. So I did.
He spent it on crack, expensive sports cars, hotel suites, room service, prostitutes, and various hangers-on who ran up his credit cards. To see the images and videos, to read the emails and texts, is to gravely doubt Hunter Biden was in any condition to legitimately earn the money from Burisma.
He's someone who couldn't even answer his own emails, couldn't even hold down a job at McDonald's, and yet he was travelling around the world having these sort of high-powered meetings and having deals thrust in his lap. So this was the life that he had while his father was vice president, and Joe Biden was assisting at every stage.
Assisting Hunter and Hunter's business partners.
Burisma's owner, a guy called Nikolai Zlochevsky, who was in a lot of trouble internationally. There were various inquiries into the theft of billions of dollars from the Ukrainian treasury. His assets had been frozen. Now, he needed protection, and Hunter Biden was his protection.
In an email on the laptop, a Burisma board advisor asked Hunter to use his influence to stop prosecutions.
We urgently need your advice on how we can use your influence to convey a message, signal, etc., to stop what we consider to be politically motivated action.
Lo and behold, when the chief prosecutor of Ukraine, a man called Viktor Shokin, started to investigate the corruption at Burisma and seized all the property of the owner of Burisma, Zlochevsky, all his mansions, his Rolls-Royce Phantom car, and so on. Shortly after that raid, Joe Biden became really insistent that the government of Ukraine had to sack Viktor Shokin, the chief prosecutor, or he would withhold $1 billion of aid.
Joe Biden would later brag about what he did in classic Biden fashion.
The president said, I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
But at the time, the Obama State Department found the whole episode highly problematic.
We had testimony from the State Department, George Kent, just the appearance of the conflict of interest. And it was a conflict of interest. It was very awkward for U.S. policymakers whose primary goal was to help Ukraine rid itself of the legacy of corruption.
There were many people sounding the alarm about Hunter Biden serving on this board while Joe Biden was the point man on Ukraine corruption. So the idea that Joe Biden would be the one person in Washington, D.C. who didn't know that this was a concern really doesn't stand up to scrutiny.
The money kept pouring in, as the laptop confirms.
In 2014, your taxes reported $847,328 in income, to be amended at $1,247,328. In 2015, your taxes reported $2,487,208 in income.
It fueled Hunter's drug benders, captured by ever raunchier sex tapes and selfies. A different kind of snapshot was prized by his business associates in far-flung locales. One with the Vice President of the United States could confer legitimacy on a corrupt oligarch or other shadowy character, while Hunter occasionally brought clients to the West Wing and the Vice President's residence, an off-site meet was a safer bet. Case in point, a 2015 dinner at Cafe Milano, a D.C. power scene. Joe's appearance was strictly hush-hush.
Dad will be there, but keep that between us for now.
He had people including a Burisma executive and his father, Vice President Joe Biden. There's photographic evidence. There were emails sent from the people who were at the dinner thanking Hunter for arranging it, thanking him for allowing them to meet with Vice President Biden and how helpful that was.
A month after this dinner, Beau Biden lost his battle to cancer. On the way home from the funeral, Hunter mused to his wife Kathleen that maybe it was his time to run for office. Dumbfounded, she shot back, "Are you kidding?"
But I underestimated how much the wreckage of my past and all that I put my family through still weighed on Kathleen. We didn't say another word to each other for the rest of the ride. Or really, ever again.
But Kathleen would call him out in emails on the laptop.
"You're not okay. My gut is you've been using this entire time. You're still projecting on me, denying what's really going on, and so far as I can see, not working on sustained sobriety."
With his marriage unraveling and a brother who had just died, Hunter did something that appalled the entire Biden family.
He then embarked fairly shortly after the funeral on an affair with his sister-in-law, Hallie Biden. His wife, Kathleen, at the time, suspected something because he was spending all his time in Hallie's house, the house of his now deceased brother, looking after, he said, her children and helping her in Wilmington, Delaware.
Kathleen soon learned Hallie wasn't the only one. Her husband's philandering had apparently been going on for years.
His name was leaked in a hack of the Ashley Madison sort of adultery site. And he lied again about that and said, no, it wasn't him. And he said, well, I was hacked by the Russians.
Kathleen emailed Hunter she wanted out.
"I'm leaving you because you're having an affair, and you've been emotionally abusive. You say you were surprised by my asking for a separation and needed time to process it? I was surprised when I found your bottles of Viagra and Cialis. I was surprised when I found airline purchases and jewelry purchases. I have woken to my reality. No one should be treated the way you've treated me. I won't take it anymore."
Despite that, in another email, she also told Hunter,
"You are a better father than your dad. I know you love your dad, and I do too, but he wasn't perfect. You were better in every way.
Being a dutiful daughter-in-law, Kathleen offered to delay the divorce until Joe decided whether he'd try to succeed Barack Obama as president.
Bo is our inspiration. Unfortunately, I believe we're out of time, the time necessary to mount a winning campaign for the nomination.
In October 2015, Joe announced he wouldn't run. Hunter spent the last year of his father's vice presidency on a nonstop cross-country booze, crack, and sex marathon that left him and his family scrambling for money. Would the cash run out? And what would happen when it did? That's coming up in Who is Hunter Biden, Episode 3. When Joe Biden announced he would not run for president in 2016, everyone assumed his long political career had come to an end. The question for Hunter Biden, who relied on leveraging his father's positions, was how would he fund his family obligations, high-flying lifestyle, and relentless addiction? As his father embarked on his last year as vice president, Hunter holed up in his D.C. apartment. He was an utter basket case. He spent extravagantly on strip clubs, adult video sites, and prostitutes. Like a low-rent porn star, he frequently filmed his wild sex life and uploaded the footage to his Pornhub account.
You cannot match the glow. I'm covered, I'm shining from head to toe. Y'all ain't notice. Exhale like POTUS. And I say open.
But he claims he cleaned himself up whenever business called.
At the moment, you can do crack around the clock every day and still make your meetings sometimes, still return your calls sometimes, still pay your bills sometimes.
It just is astounding. He was leaving meetings every 10, 15 minutes, smoking crack or doing some snorting coke or something in the middle of negotiating some of these deals.
One only wonders if influence seekers plied him with drugs. Hunter writes of trying to keep it together at a May 2016 Burisma board meeting in Monte Carlo, only to be offered cocaine in a nightclub bathroom he couldn't resist. Upon his return to D.C., he sought his old crack dealer, Bicycles, from his Georgetown days. She moved in and taught him the finer point of crack paraphernalia, a rose pipe, and chore boy steel wool. She stayed 5 months. They spent their days on the couch, smoking, quote, a ton of crack.
For endless hours, day after day, it was the same numbing ritual. Over and over and over. Pipe, chore boy, crack, light, pipe, chore boy, crack, light.
In October 2016, Hunter resolved to fly to Arizona for rehab. But after missing 4 flights, smoking crack, he decided to drive.
I drove through the night, finally stopping in Nashville a few hours after sunrise. I checked into a hotel and smoked away the rest of the day. By nightfall, I realized I was already running low on drugs. I rummaged through my car seats and floor mats for crumbs, then drove off sometime around midnight to score more. By now, I possessed a new superpower, the ability to find crack in any town at any time, no matter how unfamiliar the terrain.
After 4 days of smoking crack in his Tennessee hotel room, he finally boarded a flight to Phoenix. He made it as far as his layover in L.A., but again skipped his connecting flight to smoke crack. That binge lasted 6 days. At 4 a.m. on October 27, the sitting vice president's son finally headed out to Arizona in a rented Lincoln Town car. He almost didn't live to tell about it.
I nodded off behind the wheel. Waking up an instant later, I found myself in midair, the car having jumped a soft curb on the passing lane and soaring at 80 miles an hour into a cloudless blue sky, heading into the gulch that divided I-10.
He somehow made it to a nearby Hertz and got another car to drive the rest of the way.
He left a rental car that had drug residue in it, his brother Beau's Attorney General badge on the dash, credit cards, identification. Nothing happens to him, though. He has close associates in the Secret Service who help take care of some of these issues.
Some of those close associates, Hunter once told a friend, were agents who owed a debt to his father.
Guys said he got their daughter into the Naval Academy, that he had to the VP residence and let them use his apartment to stay and cost the White House. Guys he paid their health insurance premiums for anonymously. All those guys, they were made aware I was around. They were supposed to look out for me.
Rattled by his near-death experience, he summoned his brother's widow, Hallie, to be by his side. He tried to keep their relationship out of the papers, but the New York Post now had the story. Biden family affair, the headline said, but the relationship was far more sordid than that. The romance consisted of taking drugs, filming themselves having sex, then posting the videos to Hunter's online porn account.
Hunter would film their sex sessions and upload them to amateur porn sites such as Pornhub and give them titles such as Lonely Widow. There was a lot of love and, I guess, passion and lust there as well that they talked about, but it really was disastrous for everybody involved.
Texts capture the horror the family felt. In November 2016, Hunter's sister Ashley scolded Hallie in a family group chat that included Joe and Jill.
You will pay for sitting around while watching my other brother kill himself. Everyone is talking about Hunter making scenes at restaurants. People are worried. You are the problem. This isn't love. This is my brother. Hi.
You want me to come home because you want to use together? Not because you want me to come home.
I want to use regardless, but I would rather use with you and have sex with you all night.
It was viewed with horror by people even within the family.
Nevertheless, Hunter asked his father to come out in support of the couple.
Hunter pleads with them to put out a statement saying that they approve of it so that it doesn't look worse than it already is.
Dad, I told him, if people find out but they think you're not approving of this, it makes it seem wrong. The kids have to know that there's nothing wrong with this. And the one person who can tell them that is you.
A reluctant Joe complied.
We are all lucky that Hunter and Hallie found each other as they were putting their lives together again after such sadness. They have mine and Jill's full and complete support, and we are happy for them.
In time, the relationship grew nasty.
I think we should schedule a visit, and we'll talk with the therapist. I'm not going to continue to argue, and I don't want to talk and make things worse.
Hunter writes that Hallie told him his brother Beau didn't think highly of him and laughed behind his back. While Hunter's private life was running wild, his bank account was running low. Burisma cut his compensation in half.
Please find the new direction agreement for execution. The only thing was amended is the compensation rate. I'm sure you'll find it both fair and reasonable.
Reasonable for most, but not for Hunter. He scrambled for more cash.
Once Joe Biden leaves the vice presidency and he's a private citizen, Hunter Biden continues with the deals in China, and one of them involves this entity called CEFC, where Hunter Biden's going to get an ownership stake.
Hunter wasn't the only family member expecting his own slice of the pie.
Very interestingly, as the laptop reveals, 10% of the ownership of this entity is going to be preserved for the big guy, which is Joe Biden. So you have this circumstance where Joe Biden, recently leaving the White House, is going to be getting an ownership stake in a company that is controlled by a Chinese oligarch who's close to the intelligence services, who's close to the national security state in China. And it's an indication that Hunter Biden was really the stalking horse for the Biden family when it came to these deals in China. Once Joe was out of public service, out of the White House, now he could get a cut of these deals himself, too.
Under the deal, Hunter would get $850,000, but that was not enough.
I will need a hell of a lot more than $850 per year on a monthly basis. And this is my own personal problem, but I'll make it yours also, I'm sure. $2 million to me means $1 million before taxes. The other half goes to her, Kathleen. $850 to me means $100K to me. She has a $750 floor. That does not include all the debt I assumed, and not one dime for the girls. 2 Ivy League school living expenses and the most expensive high school in D.C.
The laptop records show that an avalanche of people constantly asked for money. His ex-wife, Kathleen, turned up the heat on him.
Our credit is a mess because of you. You have completely ruined your own credit and mine. You. Also, are you ever going to pay your bills? Pay my parents back, the lawyer, the accountant? You're a joke. You can't stop talking to the girls about money. How you're broke because you gave me all the money. Laughable.
Eventually, Hunter cut a deal with the Chinese. For introductions alone, they would pay him $10 million a year for a minimum of 3 years and a 3-carat diamond ring to boot.
You've been given this diamond in exchange for forming this relationship with these Chinese communists.
Hunter immediately went on a spending spree. According to credit card statements, nearly $22,000 for menswear, $3,000 per night hotel suites, and $12,000 at Larry Flint's Hustler Club. By this point, the once handsome Hunter was looking the part of a crack addict, rotting teeth and all. They'd cost him nearly $70,000 to fix. But dealing with corrupt foreigners had its risks.
The deal is about to come down, then a senior official at CEFC named Patrick Ho gets arrested on bribery charges in New York. And it blows up the entire deal because CEFC is now in the crosshairs of the FBI.
Payday vanished as his bills piled up, including $57,000 for Hallie's rehab in Malibu in late 2017. Around this time, he was fooling around with a D.C. stripper who called herself Dallas. This relationship would complicate his life further, though few were paying attention to Hunter's affairs, sexual or financial.
When my book first came out in 2018, I had reporters tell me, oh, this is very interesting stuff, but, you know, Joe Biden's not in office anymore, so it's no big deal.
Joe Biden, however, was thinking of running again, and the family worried Hunter might spoil the 76-year-old's last chance. He and Hallie were now living in a $5 million waterfront rental home in Annapolis, and according to this February 2018 text from Ashley to Hallie's sister Liz, openly and notoriously using drugs.
This is all getting out of control. Just came from meeting with police chiefs, and dealers are known in community. Not a good look for the widow of Attorney General. Enough is enough. I was down at the beach and I can promise no one was getting healthy. They left all their drug crap out. She is the Attorney General's widow and he is the Vice President's son. If you think that people don't already know everywhere that they are addicted to crack, etc., you are naive. When you deal with drug dealers, the likelihood of plates being run is high. My dad may run for president, and if you think this shit is going to fly, shit will hit the fan. The whole town knows, as do many others. They aren't very discreet, and people are mean. And let me tell you, they are beyond messy. They left all their drug paraphernalia for my parents to see.
Ashley apparently didn't know Hunter's relationship with Liz had also turned sexual. He paid her rent, bought her panties, and sent this steamy text.
We should shower together by FaceTime every morning or night when we're up at 3. Stress relief. I'll teach you how to masturbate.
By 2018, Hunter Biden is just off the rails. All his Chinese deals have started to fall apart. So he heads off to LA to Chateau Marmont for just a non-stop bender.
The Chateau Marmont has a storied history. Comedian John Belushi died of an overdose in Bungalow 3. Hunter was also up to no good in his $850 a night room.
Slow motion is better than no motion.
He had guys that would cook the crack for him, and then he learned how to do it himself because it was more efficient.
He also toyed around with the idea of writing a book. In June, he jotted down some possible titles.
A Crackhead's Guide to Hotel Etiquette. Or, Why Crack Cocaine is Better for You Than Vodka, but Not as Fun as Crack and Vodka. Or, Why Crack Cocaine and Air Travel Are Easy, from the Delta Shuttle to Air Force One.
At least it seemed like Easy Street. As Hunter waited for his Porsche 911 to arrive from D.C., he rented a $650 per day Lamborghini, spent $1,000 on the sex cam site Streamray. He partied like there was no tomorrow, then started again the next morning.
I'd get down on my hands and knees and scan the floor and comb through the rug with my fingers. Half the time, I had no idea what I was picking up. Is this a flake of Parmesan from the cheese platter we ordered last night? Or crack? It didn't matter. I smoked it.
But it couldn't last. His bank kept alerting him that he topped his $65,000 credit limit, and he apparently paid an escort with his father's card.
He was in the Chateau Marmont with a professional lady, shall we say. At the end of their little adventure, Hunter Biden owed this lady an additional $8,000, more than the cash that he had already paid her. He handed her a debit card. She swiped it. It appeared not to go through. So he said, here's another one, try this. They went through 5 of those, $8,000 each time, didn't work. Finally, on the 6th one, it went through. A couple of hours later, while she's at home, bing, 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 bing. Her computer lights up. The 5 transactions that they thought didn't go through went through. So she reaches out and calls Hunter Biden and explains, remember those 5 transactions? Well, they went through. And he starts to get nuts because he mentions to her, some of that money is my dad's. These were all debit cards in the name of Hunter Biden.
Then, just like that, a retired Secret Service agent texted Hunter from downstairs.
H, I'm in the lobby. Come down.
5 minutes.
5 minutes pass. The agent pings again.
Come on, H. This is linked to Celtic's account.
Celtic was Joe Biden's Secret Service code name when he was Veep.
DC is calling you every 10. Let me up or come down. I can't help if you don't let me, H.
I promise. Be right down. Sorry.
5 minutes later, another former agent arrives.
He's going to the front desk. Call and tell them to give us a key now, H. As your friend, we need to resolve this in the immediate. Call the front desk now, H, or I'll have to assume you're in danger and we'll have to make them give us the keys.
9 minutes pass.
Really, I'm coming down right now. I really promise. Was in the bathroom, buddy. Coming right this second.
We're at your door. Open it.
So we have the special agent in charge of the Los Angeles Office of Secret Service confirming that one of those debit cards is Celtic's, Joe Biden's.
Even the legendary Party Hotel had seen enough.
He was kicked out of the Chateau Marmont because of the amount of partying that went on.
Should I take it as a badge of honor?
Hunter may have worn the eviction as a badge of honor, but he was less than honorable when Dallas, the stripper, notified him she was carrying his child.
Reached out a few times. It's clear you don't want to be reached. Need to talk to you.
She gave birth to Hunter's daughter, Navy, in August 2018. At the time, Hunter was living in a $16,000 a month Malibu home, spending his days smoking crack and patronizing prostitutes. He denied paternity. But he was still feeling constant pressure from Biden family members looking for a handout, expressing to a friend a woe is me resentment of his departed older brother.
You take on these responsibilities. He didn't do any of this shit. I swear to right he did.
On October 12, 2018, Hunter went back to Delaware and bought a .38 caliber revolver. Hallie, who apparently thought he'd try to kill himself, threw the gun away. Hunter told his friend, sometimes therapist and one-time Fox News contributor Keith Abloh, about it.
Did I tell you what she did with my .38? I freaked when I saw it was missing 10 minutes after she took it. And when she went back to get it after I scared the shit out of her, it was gone, which led to state police investigating me. True story.
Another true story. Hunter swore on a federal form that he wasn't a user of illegal drugs, even though there are photos of him smoking crack days before. Secret Service agents tried to take possession of the federal form, but the gun shop owner refused.
Hunter is this barely functional human who's got this roaring crack addiction and roaring sex addiction. It's just a very bizarre scenario, considering that you have to juxtapose that against the really high-level, dangerous business that he was involved in.
Hunter flew back to L.A. while he viewed himself as a functional drug user. His uncle and business associate, Jim Biden, knew he had big problems. Jim traveled west to book Hunter in an exclusive detox center with a pool, hot tub, gourmet meals, massages, and yoga classes. Again, it didn't take. So that fall, Hunter returned east to try a program in Massachusetts. It also didn't work. He drove up and down I-95 and for the next few months lived in a series of cheap hotels with easy access to dealers and prostitutes. During that time, he exchanged a series of texts with Abloh, joking about what they called Joe's dementia. In one, Abloh suggested a theme for a 2020 presidential run.
Any man who can triumph over dementia is a giant. Perhaps he can help us remember all we intended to be as people, since he can now remember his address.
He doesn't need to know where he lives, Keith. That's the only thing the Secret Service gets right, at least 75% of the time.
During that time, Hunter recorded a rambling poem in which he seems to fantasize about scuttling his father's White House ambitions.
I am the boy no one knows, but fears. You do not know me. You do not want to know me. You will never know me if I so choose. All I am is feared and loathed, as I carry the load of every single sin and venal act. You think that you see me, but you do not. You think that you hear me, but you will not. You think that you love me, but you do not. I am all that is combined in the things you fear most. You think you understand my threats, but you do not. You think that I am silent and sullied and uncertain, but I am not.
Joe Biden could count on the support of the media and other members of the establishment for his run for president, but Hunter Biden was a huge problem.
Would Hunter deliberately sabotage his father's presidential dreams? He was certainly angry over a February 2019 Maureen Dowd column about the troubled Hunter.
Your team just made me the uncontrollable, troubled, tax cheat, philanderer, sex and drug addict that you tried so hard to fix but couldn't. If you don't run, I'll never get a chance at redemption.
I'll run, but I need you.
In the finale to Who is Hunter Biden, weeks before Joe's big presidential announcement, an intervention for Hunter backfires. That's episode 4. In March of 2019, it was Joe Biden asking, "Where's Hunter?" He was ready to announce his third run for president, but Hunter was on a drug and sex binge up and down I-95. That's when he got a call from his mother, Jill. She asked him to come home, and he accepted the invitation.
I walked into the house, bright and homey as always, and immediately saw my 3 daughters. I knew then that something was up. A moment later, I spotted 2 counselors from a rehab center that I'd once gone to in Pennsylvania.
It was an intervention.
Not a chance, I said. My dad suddenly looked terrified. I don't know what else to do, he cried out. I'm so scared. Tell me what to do. My flat reply, not this.
Joe tightly hugged Hunter, who promised to go to a rehab center in Maryland. But when Hallie dropped him at the door, he never checked in. She drove off, and he Ubered to a motel by the airport.
For the next 2 days, while everybody who had been at my parents' house thought I was safe and sound at the center, I sat in my room and smoked crack that I tucked away in my traveling bag.
In his memoir, Hunter claims he then hopped a plane back to California, checked into an Airbnb, and spent the next month and a half in a, quote, drug-befuddled blur of complete and utter debauchery. His laptop, however, suggests he was still in Delaware. He was certainly there on April 12. That's the day he made a fateful stop at a computer repair store.
My name is John Paul Mac Isaac, and I'm the former owner of the Mac Shop in Wilmington, Delaware. It was Friday, April 12th, 2019, right before I closed, and walked in a gentleman carrying 3 MacBook Pros. I could definitely tell that he was inebriated, and even though at this time I didn't recognize him, he was a bit beyond my visual acuity range. When I asked for his last name, there was a long pause, and he kind of sarcastically added Biden. I had to ask Hunter for his password, and he started laughing. He was like, "You're not really going to like this."
Mac Isaac told Hunter that one laptop required more work and he'd contact him when it was fixed. What began as a simple data transfer soon turned troubling.
During my research, there was just so much homemade pornography on his laptop that it was disgusting. It was hard to work through. I tried to keep my blinders on, but the sheer volume of it was astounding.
That wasn't all he noticed.
There was a file called income.pdf. I decided that would be the file that I would open up to verify that the data transfer is actually working. And that's when I opened up that document, and I saw that he had made $1.2 million in 2014 for Burisma.
Once the data transfer was complete, Mac Isaac made several attempts to contact Hunter. He didn't respond. Shortly thereafter, on April 25, 2019, Joe announced his third run for president.
The single most important thing we have to accomplish is defeat Donald Trump.
The Biden family is ready, and we will do this as we always have, as a family.
But one member was missing.
By this stage, Hunter's gone back to California. He ends up meeting his current wife.
Her name, Melissa Cohen, a South African filmmaker, and things move fast, really fast.
The woman I took to be Melissa glanced my way and flashed a bright smile. Easy smile. It floored me. An hour later, Melissa said she was in love with me.
Within a week, they were married. Shortly thereafter, Hunter was hit with a paternity suit from the 28-year-old stripper who bore his child.
She files for parental support from him, and he at first denies paternity. Tests prove that that is in fact his child.
In March 2020, Hunter and Melissa had their own child, a son named Beau. Meantime, Hunter still hadn't returned any of John Paul Mac Isaac's calls about the laptop.
He did sign an authorization. It clearly states at the bottom of the authorization that products left at the shop after 90 days become the Mac shop's property. When Joe announced his candidacy, I started to notice a lot in the news revolving around Burisma and Hunter Biden's involvement. I was concerned because I had seen the name Burisma multiple times, usually attached to a considerably large amount of money. By mid-July, it became my property.
At the time, the country was finally hearing all about Hunter's Ukrainian energy deals.
The company was owned by a pro-Russian Ukrainian oligarch. Once again, Hunter, zero experience in Ukraine, zero experience in oil, gas, but was paid millions of dollars.
Mac Isaac realized the laptop might contain key evidence.
I spent about a month and a half researching Burisma and the contents of the laptop. And at this point, I felt like there was enough here that I needed to get this to the authorities.
Mac Isaac met with FBI agents, but they seemed in no rush to take action.
I think that was my first indication that maybe the FBI was more interested in returning the laptop to the former owner and protecting the Bidens, and they were protecting me, or getting this to the proper channels.
He needed a new strategy and reached out to those he felt could help.
I identified myself as Bob Costello, Rudy Giuliani's lawyer. I've seen the email that you sent to Rudy's attention. I'm interested if you've obtained that material legally.
Mac Isaac sent Costello a copy of the hard drive.
There is a massive amount of material here that's very damaging to Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Jim Biden. It's not stuff that you would ever want to see the light of day if you were any of those people.
It was pretty quiet for a while dealing with Bob, and we were just kind of waiting. That changed when Senator Grassley and Johnson released their Hunter Biden Burisma report.
We found that they engaged in potential criminal financial deals across the globe, including China, which created counterintelligence concerns.
With few journalists actually looking into the problems caused by the international business dealings of people in Joe Biden's family, you had a couple of senators look into it, and they end up putting out a really exhaustive and helpful report. And it's not based on rumors or speculation. They go through Treasury Department documents and other government documents to show what was happening in this Biden family business.
Chuck Grassley and I were falsely accused of soliciting and then disseminating Russian disinformation. Nothing could be further from the truth.
They wanted to detract from the damage that it might do to the Biden candidacy for the presidency of the United States. But you saw possible criminal activity, You saw great concerns about national security. You soon found out that maybe Dad knows more about his son's business. They didn't report anything.
The fake news, where is Hunter? Where's Hunter? Hunter's in a foreign country, taking in $25 million today.
In one debate, I remember Joe Biden was asked about this $3.5 million that Hunter received from the wife of the former Moscow mayor, and he said, oh, that's been debunked.
The mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
You've asked a question, let him answer. If not, none of that is true.
Oh, really?
Totally,
Mr.
President, Mr. President, please.
Totally
discredited.
It hasn't been debunked at all. It was a government document that showed this.
Though the media largely dismissed the Senate report, Mac Isaac did not.
I realized that the report was missing some vital information about how that money was earned and what was that money paying for. I reached out to Senator Ron Johnson's website.
When somebody's offering you something like that, there's a real responsibility to fully vet information. We go to the FBI, who knew all about it. They wouldn't tell us squat. Now, as we went through the vetting process, I'm starting to think that's either a really good Russian intel product or that's Hunter Biden's computer. And I think now everybody agrees that's Hunter Biden's computer.
While Johnson's team vetted the laptop's contents, Bob Costello tried to find a media outlet to publish the material.
He sent me some of just astonishing photographs of Hunter Biden from the laptop. One famous one of Hunter asleep with a crack pipe in his mouth, and other photographs. There was an extraordinary treasure trove there.
When the Post reached out to Hunter for comment, Mac Isaac's phone rang.
I get a phone call, and I answer it, and it's a gentleman, George Merceris, who announced himself as Hunter Biden's lawyer. And he was asking if I was still in possession of some equipment that Hunter had left back in 2017. I told him, can you send me your credentials so I know that I'm allowed to talk to who I'm talking to and you represent the customer? He agreed, and I received an email shortly thereafter asking basically to check into the status of the equipment and acknowledging the phone call. I went to bed that night very, very restless.
We published on October 14, 3 weeks before the election.
When the New York Post broke the news about Hunter Biden's laptop, a lot of people were interested in it because it had pictures and lurid details about Hunter Biden's drug issues, prostitution, and other crazy living. And it also showed that Joe Biden was a part of this Hunter Biden family business. And it was explosive. Many people in the media freak out and try to figure out how they can suppress the story. It has the potential to completely reshape the race. And I think everybody knew that. Facebook puts out a notice saying that they are going to artificially suppress the story until they can have some fact checkers put on it. Fact checkers who never arrive. Twitter, they suppress it so much, you can't even share a link to the New York Post. And if you did, you would be kicked off Twitter.
Big tech put their thumb on the scale, and they decided, without any knowledge, without examining any information themselves, that the laptop was a story that people should not hear about.
Obviously, we're not going with the New York Post story right now on Hunter Biden.
Some dismissing the laptop seized on the 2020 catchphrase, Russian disinformation.
Disinformation Rudy Giuliani is peddling very well could be connected to some sort of Russian government disinformation campaign.
I'm no Russian agent. I'm a former federal prosecutor in the Southern District of New York. I'm the furthest thing you could have to a Russian agent. This stuff is genuine. I understand why they want to run away from it, but you can't run away from reality.
Joe Biden himself, his campaign, never disputed that the laptop was Hunter Biden's. They knew it was Hunter Biden's laptop.
The October surprise didn't stop Joe Biden from being elected America's 46th president.
It ended up coming down to 43,000 votes across 3 states. When you're dealing with an election that close, every little thing can have a huge impact.
And And now Hunter Biden, as the president's son, was positioned to cash in like never before. But would he dare?
You would think that after all of the scandals that Hunter Biden would just want to lie low.
Laying low doesn't seem to be an option. There are ongoing discoveries into business dealings between himself and China.
He is still a partner with the Chinese Communist Party in Beijing. Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, has been asked on numerous occasions since President Biden got into the Oval Office, when is Hunter Biden going to get rid of his share in this company, BHR? And always her answer is he's in the process of divesting himself of that shareholding, but it never happens.
For decades, Hunter's improbable run in banking, lobbying, and hedge funds had critics shaking their heads. But his latest venture was a thumb in their eyes.
After President Biden is elected, Hunter Biden comes up with a new career, this time art. He makes art and he sells it for a massive amount of money.
The Hunter Biden art scheme, as I call it, is genius-level corruption. The art world is rife with money laundering. Art is subjective. Art is in the eye of the beholder. I read recently a British artist sold an invisible piece of art to somebody for $20,000. So, you can put a value on it whatever you want. And that's really what the Bidens have done. Hunter Biden is selling these works of art for up to $500,000, which goes for more than some of the grand masters out there.
Hunter Biden, the painter. Has Hunter Biden finally found his true calling? Is he the equal of Picasso and Van Gogh? Or have the Bidens simply launched perhaps the most brazen grift in the history of American politics? We reached out to Hunter for this story. He didn't respond. Miranda Devine has her opinion.
It shows corruption at the highest level of the American government. It shows a corrupt enterprise that has been going on in Delaware for decades by the Biden family, which Joe Biden, when he was vice president, internationalized around the world and therefore put America's national security at risk. It has compromised America.
And the Hunter Biden saga is not over yet.
If the Biden story is a Shakespeare play, like Macbeth, but we are at the midway point. We continue to go through the Hunter Biden laptop, and of course you have the President of the United States, Joe Biden, who is himself making unpredictable decisions as it pertains to American national security. All of that, I think, combines to a very dramatic, and I would argue very troubling, finish to this story.
So much of the Hunter Biden story is still unfolding, with the remaining pages blank, unwritten. Joe Biden remains president. Hunter Biden still has access to political power and continues to escape scrutiny. With new revelations regarding his business dealings and personal life continuing to unfold, we await the closing chapter of this story. As Hunter himself said in his memoir, "I'm not going anywhere." Well, Hunter, neither are we.